This is a 2 hour and 5 minute movie where for the first 3 full minutes, nothing happens but a bird, some wind, and a woman whistling at the sky. No names, no story. Just vibes and a hawk. I waited. I sat there like a good boy waiting for a plot, and the movie just kept showing me weather. And here's the crazy part. This slow, sad, Oscar bait drama is secretly the origin story of the most famous play ever written. Yes. This is a Shakespeare movie that is too artsy to ever say the word Shakespeare. They literally named a character after his most famous play and dare you to notice. So buckle up, because what you're about to watch is a haunted house of brooding stares, herbal mumbling, and a hawk that gets more screen time than half the cast. There are people in this film who say maybe 4 words total, and the hawk outacts most of them. And somehow, against all odds, this thing sticks the landing and makes you cry like a baby at the end. I'm not made of stone. We'll get there. But first I have to warn you about a kid in this movie named Hamnet, because the dad later writes a play called Hamlet, and the film acts like that's a shocking twist. It is not a twist. It's 2 letters. But the movie holds it back for 2 hours like it's the identity of a serial killer. I'm going to walk you through the slowest meet-cute in cinema history, a birth scene that simply will not quit, and the single most dramatic "I have to go to London" ever filmed. Let's go. We open on a field. Gray light, soft wind, the kind of morning that makes you want to text your mom. A woman stands in the grass with a hawk on her arm, and she whistles up at the clouds. And she whistles. And then for variety, she whistles. A normal movie starts with a hook. This one starts with a hawk. I started counting the seconds of pure wind and I lost count, which I think is what the director wanted. This is Agnes. She's our heroine. She's barefoot. She lives in the forest like a Tudor Snow White, and the whole town thinks she's a witch's daughter. We'll see, movie, we'll see. Meanwhile, in a nearby schoolroom, there's a young man who's supposed to be teaching Latin to a row of bored children. This is the tutor. The film does not name him. It will not name him for a very long time. Just know that he is shy, he is broke, and he is the future most famous writer in human history, and right now his entire job is conjugating verbs for 10-year-olds. He glances out the window. He sees the woman with the hawk, and he does what any responsible educator would do. He abandons the children and walks outside to look at a bird. Worst substitute teacher in Stratford. There are kids in that room still waiting for him to come back. Some of them probably grew up, had families, and died still wondering what the past tense of to love was. He just walks out, and the gossip starts immediately, because in this town nothing is private. The Glover's son just ran out. Yes, he ran out because a pretty woman had a falcon and Latin could wait. Now we get the meet cute, and I have to prepare you, because this is the slowest flirting 2 human beings have ever done. These 2 communicate entirely in meaningful pauses and soft ahs. He approaches. She has the hawk. He says, "May I?" He reaches out to pet the bird. She lets him. The hawk does not bite him, which in this film counts as a marriage proposal. He likes you, she says about the hawk, but obviously also about herself, because this is a movie and that's how movies work. Then comes the line. He asks her name. And instead of just saying it like a person, she says, "I shan't tell you." And he, this shy, broke Latin tutor who just abandoned a classroom, says, and I quote, "You'll tell me when we kiss." Excuse me, sir. Where did that come from? This is the cockiest line in a movie this quiet. The whole film is whispers and wind, and then this man drops the smoothest pickup line of the century out of nowhere, like he's been saving it. And then to seal it, he just kisses her. Out of nowhere, bold, confident. A real moment. And then he immediately runs away. He kisses her and then bolts like he scared himself. Which honestly he did. He shocked himself with his own game. He went from 0 to Casanova and his body could not handle it, so it just took off running back across the field. The hawk is unbothered. The hawk has seen it all. Okay, so now we cut to the Shakespeare family home for dinner, and this is where the movie pulls out the full period misery starter pack. Gray light, mud. A man getting yelled at over soup. If you've got a mean dad yells at sensitive son over dinner bingo card, go ahead and mark it now, because here comes John. John is the dad. John is a glove maker, he's drowning in debt, and he has exactly 2 personality settings, which are disappointed and more disappointed. At dinner, John mocks his son for having fancy airs, He sneers at all that education and says the boy hasn't got an ounce of sense. It's the classic setup. We've got the bullying father and we've got the broke, brooding, sensitive dreamer who would clearly rather be writing poetry than stitching gloves. You can see the whole arc forming. The dad represents the dull, cruel world, the son represents art with a capital A, and the soup represents the soup. The soup is just soup, but the movie films it like a tragedy. And here's the thing about why our tutor is even stuck teaching Latin to children. He's not doing it for the love of the language. He's doing it to help pay off his father's debts. So this man is trapped. He's brilliant, he's bursting with words he can't say out loud, and he's spending his days drilling grammar and his nights getting roasted over dinner by a man who thinks reading is a personality flaw. No wonder he ran across a field to kiss a stranger. I'd run too. Then the family gossip turns, as all gossip in this town eventually does, to the strange woman at the farm called Hewlands. They call her the child of a forest witch. They say she walks the roads with a hawk, alone, like that's the scandal of the century. The film absolutely loves this. It loves telling us over and over that this woman is mysterious and magical and not like other girls. Everyone keeps whispering that she's secretly magic, and I kept waiting for her to actually do some magic. Float a teacup, curse a guy, anything. But for now it's all whispers. We'll see movie, we'll see. And this, friends, is the first 12 minutes. Let me tell you what has actually happened so far. A bird stood on an arm. A man left his job to pet that bird. Two attractive people refused to blink at each other in a field. There was one kiss and one sprint. And a sad man got yelled at over dinner. That's it. That's the whole opening. In a normal film, we'd be 3 plot twists deep by now. In this film, we have established that the wind exists and that the dad is a jerk. But I want to be fair because I'm a fair man. The movie looks gorgeous. Every frame is a painting. The light is doing the most. And Jessie Buckley as Agnes and Paul Mescal as the tutor are about to act their entire souls out for 2 hours, and they're so good it almost makes you forget how little is happening. Almost. The roast is the pacing, the whispering, the way this film treats a hawk like a co-lead and treats actual sentences like they cost money. So stick with me. Because the courtship is next, and I promise you, this man's idea of romance is about to be the single weirdest seduction strategy I have ever witnessed. So our shy tutor cannot stop thinking about the hawk woman, which means he has to engineer a second meeting, and his big move is to bring her a gift. He brings her a glove for her bird. Now this is sweet in theory, except he's a glove maker's son, so this is the one thing he can absolutely produce at 0 cost. It's like a barista bringing you a free coffee on a date. And then she looks at it and says she already has one. She's already got a bird glove. So now he's standing in a field, gift rejected, with all the conversational confidence of a man who teaches Latin to children for a living. And he admits it. He just comes out and says that talking to people is hard for him. Which, finally, an honest line. And she, instead of letting him off the hook, says, "Tell me a story then." And friends, this is where we learn what this man considers romantic. Other guys bring flowers. This guy decides the way into a woman's heart is to tell her a Greek tragedy about a man whose wife dies. He tells her the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Quick version, because the movie is going to make this matter later. Orpheus loves Eurydice. Eurydice dies. Orpheus is so sad he marches down into the underworld to get her back, and he plays music so beautiful that death itself says, "Fine, you can have her, on one condition. Walk out and don't look back. Just don't look back." And he gets so close, almost out, and then he looks back. And she's gone forever, the end. That's his flirting material. A story about a dead wife and a fatal backward glance. And I need you to plant a little flag in your brain right here, because the movie sure does. This Orpheus story, do not look back, and a line you'll hear later, the rest is silence. That is the entire thesis of this film. The whole movie is about grief and looking back and trying to bring someone back from the dead. So when this guy uses it as a pickup line, the film is basically winking at you so hard it pulls a muscle. Smooth, though, real smooth. Hey, you come here often. Anyway, let me tell you about a man who lost everything. Then Agnes does her thing. She takes his hand, and she doesn't read his palm like a normal fortune teller. No. She reads the little muscle, the squishy bit between the thumb and the finger. She squeezes the hand meat. It's giving witch, but make it artisanal. And while she's squeezing his hand, she says she sees a whole landscape inside him, caves, oceans, and, quote, undiscovered countries. Now write that one down too, because the undiscovered country comes back later in the most famous speech in the English language, and the film is planting it right here under a tree while squeezing a man's thumb. So now we get a little montage of love blooming. Him teaching by day, the two of them sneaking off to meet by the trees, her doing her herbal woman of the forest things. At one point, she does a mugwort chant, which is a little plant spell her late mother taught her, and the film treats it like sacred poetry. And our tutor, because he simply cannot help himself, starts reciting poetry while he pines. He does the whole "what light through yonder window breaks" bit, which, if you went to school, you know is from Romeo and Juliet. The movie is nudging you in the ribs going, you know this guy. He's that guy, the Romeo and Juliet guy. We get it, film. You can stop elbowing me. Then in the woods, things heat up and they sleep together, and very quickly Agnes is pregnant. And our man does not panic. Instead, he gets dramatic. He declares that he must be handfasted to her, which is the old-timey way of saying engaged and basically married. And his reasoning is the funniest line in the whole movie to me, because he says, "I have no talent for waiting. This man." In the slowest film ever made, where a single conversation takes a geological age, where people pause for 40 seconds between words, this man says he has no talent for waiting. Sir, you are the waiting. You are the embodiment of waiting. The irony writes itself and then takes a 3-minute artsy pause. Naturally, both families lose their minds. His side hates it. His mother Mary, who up to now has been quietly disapproving, drops the most metal line in this entire movie of whispers. She tells her son she would, quote, "rather you went to sea than marry this wench, to sea." Mom went 0 to shipwreck instantly. In a film where everyone communicates in soft sighs, Mary just casually wishes her own son a watery grave to avoid the in-laws. That's commitment. That's a mother. And on Agnes's side, her stepmother Joan disapproves too, because of course she does. Joan thinks Agnes is wild and strange, and not the kind of woman you want marrying into anything. And Agnes, to steady herself, leans on the memory of her dead mother and the little mantra her mum left her. Something about living with your heart open and turning your face to the sun. It's genuinely lovely, and the film knows it's lovely, and it lets that flute swell because it cannot resist a flute. So how does the wedding actually happen with both families against it? A deal gets struck. There's the small matter of the debts on the Shakespeare side, and there's the threat of the body court, which is the old church court that would absolutely drag a pregnant, unmarried couple in front of the whole town. So between the money pressure and the threat of public shame, the families fold and the wedding is on. And the wedding itself. Oh, the wedding. I have never seen a celebration filmed with less celebration. The emotional buildup of this wedding has the energy of filling out a tax form. 2 people stand outside. Some words are said. There's the mugwort chant again, now repurposed as a romantic love thing instead of a plant spell. And the score, the music, swells like it's the moon landing. Like Neil Armstrong is stepping onto the lunar surface. Meanwhile, on screen it's 2 quiet people in a damp field exchanging the bare minimum of joy. The gap between how big the music feels and how small the scene looks is honestly one of my favorite jokes in the movie, and it's not even trying to be funny. Now I want to do you a favor, because the film plays a long game and I want you to feel smart when it pays off, not annoyed. So let me say it plainly. Remember 3 things from this section. 1. The Orpheus story and that rule, don't look back. 2. The line about an undiscovered country, said while squeezing this man's hand. And 3. The rest is silence, which hasn't landed yet but is coming. The movie has carefully buried these like little seeds. And 2 hours from now, it's going to dig them all back up at once and expect you to gasp. And you will gasp because it works, which is the most annoying thing about this film. It plants so obviously, and then it still gets you. So where are we? We are about 25 minutes in. We have a courtship built entirely out of dead wife mythology and hand squeezing. We have a mother who'd prefer a shipwreck. We have a wedding scored like the space program. And we have 2 young people, broke, in love, and now legally bound, about to cram themselves into a tiny room attached to his awful father's house and start a family. Which means babies are coming. And the next stretch of this movie contains a birth scene so long, so committed, so endless, that I genuinely started to worry the actress would deliver the child before the scene was over. Stay right there. It's a lot. So now they're married, and the movie rewards us with the dream every newlywed couple wants. A single cramped room bolted onto the in-laws' house. Romantic. Nothing says young love like sharing a wall with the man who threatened to throw you in court. But hey, they're happy for about a minute and a half, which in this film is basically a feature-length sitcom run. Then comes Susanna, their first kid, and I want you to notice the pacing here, because it is genuinely impressive. We're barely past the wedding, and a whole baby has shown up. This child arrived faster than most of the plot points. There are conversations in this movie that take longer than a human pregnancy, and yet the actual baby got fast-tracked. The family stands around in the soft candlelight doing the warm domestic glow thing, everyone whispering, everyone gazing, a flute doing its little flute business in the background. It's lovely, it's tender. And Will, our brooding tutor, is already restless because of course he is. The man cannot sit still in a movie where sitting still is the entire genre. And this is where his dad re-enters to remind us he is the worst. John the glovemaker, the town villain in a leather apron. He's got Will hunched over the glove bench doing the family trade, and John just hovers there like a storm cloud with opinions. Your stitches are too big, smaller, useless, that's his whole personality. John has exactly 2 settings, and they are disappointed and disappointed. You could not pay this man a compliment at gunpoint. Every time he opens his mouth, it's another tiny dagger, and Will just takes it and takes it, stitching away, jaw clenched, eyes doing that wounded poet thing. Until finally he doesn't take it, Will snaps. He grabs his father, pins him against the wall, and delivers the line, "That was the last time you will ever hit me." And honestly, good for him. This is a rare big loud moment in a film that normally communicates in sighs and meaningful pauses. So when somebody actually does something physical, the whole audience sits up like, wait, we're allowed to have action. Things can happen. The bar is on the floor and Will just cleared it by shoving his dad into some glove leather, and it counts as a triumph. That's the kind of movie this is. A man asserts a boundary one time in 2 hours, and it feels like the storming of a castle. But the win doesn't fix him, because nothing in this film fixes anything quickly. At night Will sits and scribbles. He's writing something. We don't know what, he won't tell us what, and when Agnes asks, he mumbles it's nothing of note and refuses to read it aloud. Which, sure. Mr. Nothing of Note, we're all just going to pretend we don't know what he eventually writes. The film keeps doing this. It keeps having the most famous writer in human history go, "Oh, this old thing. It's nothing, buddy. We've seen the poster." And here we get the writer's block montage, which is my favorite genre of nothing. It is a man staring at a candle. That's the scene. He stares at the candle flickers, he stares some more, the flute comes back, and you slowly realize you are watching the most expensive screensaver ever committed to film. There's a version of this movie that's just 2 hours of Paul Mescal looking soulfully at wax, and I'm not sure I'd be able to tell the difference. He gets drunk, he gets broken, he says, "I'm lost. I've lost my way. I just need to work." And the marriage starts to crack right down the middle because it turns out marrying a sad genius who won't talk and won't sit still and won't show you his homework is, surprisingly, a lot of work. So Agnes, who reads people for a living by squeezing the little muscle in their hand, reads her own husband and figures out the problem. He's withering in Stratford. He needs more. She tells her brother Bartholomew that Will has to go to London, the place where the whole world gathers. And she's right, she's completely right, but I do love that the solution to my husband is sad and distant is he should move to a different city. Most couples try counseling. Agnes goes straight to long distance. Oh, and she's pregnant again, by the way. With the twins this time, though nobody knows it's twins yet, because this movie loves a surprise that it then takes forever to deliver. So Will packs up and leaves for London. He promises lodgings, he promises gifts, and he gives Agnes the river safety speech. Pay attention to the river. The film sure wants you to. There's a dangerous river on the way, and the movie plants that river like it's burying treasure, lingering on it, scoring it ominously, basically waving a giant flag that says remember this river. Agnes will fixate on it. The film has decided water is scary, and it is not going to be subtle about it. And then we hit the big set piece, the birth. Buckle up because this is the centerpiece, and it is roughly the length of an actual pregnancy. A storm rolls in because of course it does. The weather in this movie has read the script. Agnes goes into labor and she wants to give birth out in the forest, barefoot in the dirt like she does everything, and the family blocks her, herds her inside, and she's panicking. And here's the thing that's almost funny if it weren't so sad. In the middle of agony, she becomes convinced that Will has drowned. In the river he isn't anywhere near. He's in London, he's fine. But her brain went straight to the water because the film told her to, and now she's screaming about a drowning that isn't happening while actually giving birth, which is a lot of crisis to stack into one scene. The film looked at woman in labor during a thunderstorm and went, you know what this needs. A second imaginary tragedy. Now I have to be real with you because Jessie Buckley is doing something extraordinary here. She is acting her entire soul out of her body. This is genuinely some of the best screaming in a storm work you will ever see, and she earns every second of it. The problem isn't her. The problem is the movie keeps going like it's getting paid by the scream. The scene does not end. It just keeps finding new lower gears. You think it's over and then there's another contraction, another shout, another lingering shot of a sweaty forehead, and you start to wonder if the editor went home. And then finally Hamnet is born, a boy relief. We made it. And then surprise, there's another one in there, twins. Out comes Judith. But the film isn't done with you because in the middle of all this it cuts to a flashback. We learn how Agnes's own mother, Rowan, died, and there's this prophecy Agnes clings to that she'd have 2 children at my deathbed. 2 children. She's holding onto that like a promise. And then Judith comes out and there's a terrible scare because for a moment Judith doesn't move, doesn't breathe, a stillbirth scare that the film does not rush through. And then Judith lives, she breathes. And Agnes, wrecked and overwhelmed, makes a vow over her tiny fragile daughter. I will make sure nothing ever takes you away, and I'm going to let that one sit because the film knows exactly what it's doing. That vow is a quiet little knife, and if you know where this story is going, it lands soft and it lands deep. Agnes swears to protect the daughter she nearly lost, the sickly one, the one everyone is sure won't make it. The movie plants it gently and just lets it breathe. What I will roast cleanly is the sheer volume of grief Chloe Zhao stacks into one stretch of film. A drowning panic, a flashback death, a prophecy, a stillbirth scare, all before anyone's even had breakfast. Zhao directs sorrow like a chef who only owns one spice, and the spice is more rain, more candlelight. More heartbreak per minute than any human nervous system was built to absorb. By the time the twins are both finally alive and crying, you've been through so much you need a nap, a snack, and possibly a grief counselor of your own. But the babies are here, the family is bigger, and somehow, against all odds, we have moved the plot forward. Slowly, beautifully, painfully slowly, but forward. And then the movie does the thing every prestige drama loves to do. It jumps ahead in time and suddenly the twins are kids, adorable kids. Hamnet and Judith running around the house, thick as thieves, finishing each other's sentences and doing the one thing that will define their entire relationship. They swap. They trade clothes, they trade names. I'm Hamnet, you know, I'm Judith, and they do it constantly just to mess with everyone. And here's the part that genuinely sends me. The adults fall for it every time. These 2 children put on each other's outfits and the entire household has a small existential crisis. Grown people stand there squinting going, now which one are you? Sir, you are their parents. The 1590s were just constant gender confusion and vibes, apparently, and nobody could tell 2 specific children apart if they switched coats. Remember this gag. Tuck it somewhere safe. The film is not playing a prank on the family. It's playing a prank on you. Will is home for this stretch visiting because he's a London theater man now, a real one, and the kids prank him too. They hit him with a chunk of Greek to show off, because of course these are the children of a future literary legend and a forest witch, so naturally they're casually multilingual little show-offs. It's warm, it's sweet. Susanna, the eldest, is the responsible one, keeping the keys, minding the house, doing the heavy lifting of being the kid who had to grow up first. She's the one holding everything together while everyone else gazes meaningfully at Fields. And then the kids put on a little performance for their mother, and what do they perform? The 3 witches from Macbeth. When shall we 3 meet again? Fair is foul and foul is fair. two children doing the witches, and the film just slides it in there real casual, like we won't notice. And this is the running thing I have to point out because the movie does it constantly. It keeps sneaking Shakespeare quotes into the story like a parent hiding vegetables under mashed potatoes, hoping the kids won't taste the broccoli. We've already had Romeo and Juliet earlier. Now we've got Macbeth's witches. The whole film is secretly an English class and it really thinks it's getting away with it. Spoiler. We can see the broccoli movie. We've always been able to see the broccoli. The broccoli is the entire dinner. Then Agnes gets her teaching moment because she's the herb lady and she walks the kids through her plants. And she stops on rosemary and she explains that rosemary is for remembering. Now, I need you to understand how hard this film underlines its own themes. It doesn't underline them. It takes a highlighter, runs it over the line, then runs it over again, then presses so hard the paper tears and bleeds through to the next page. Rosemary is for remembering in a movie that is entirely about a grieving mother who cannot stop remembering her child. Subtle as a brick through a stained glass window. She also teaches them to whistle a wish to the hawk because yes, the hawk is still here. The hawk has been in this movie longer than some of the human characters and is, frankly, giving the most consistent performance. Then we get the big tender father-son talk, and oh, this scene. Will pulls Hamnet aside for a heart-to-heart, tells him to stay away from cruel grandfather John, tells him, I need you to look after your mother and sisters. Solid dad stuff. And then he hits the kid with will you be brave, and the kid says yes. And Will goes, will you be brave, again. And the kid, a 10-year-old, says yes again. And Will keeps going, will you be brave, my guy? He said yes. He said yes 4 separate times. This is not a tender goodbye anymore. This is a hostage negotiation. At a certain point, the child is just trying to get out of the room. But mark it down because I'll be brave is getting planted right here, and the film is going to cash that check later in the most devastating way imaginable. It's loading it now, gently, with all the subtlety of a man asking a 4th grader to swear a blood oath. Meanwhile, the marriage admin continues. Will wants to move the family, or at least keep buying things, and there's a negotiation about London. Agnes flatly refuses to drag the sickly Judith into plague-ridden London, which is, you have to admit, an extremely reasonable position. London at the time was basically a disease buffet, and Judith is the fragile twin, the one Agnes swore to protect. So Will instead agrees to buy land, a big house outside Stratford, the safe option. And then he does the thing he always does, he leaves again. And I have to talk about Will's commute because it is becoming the funniest recurring bit in the film that the film doesn't know is funny. This man has gone to London so many times that the horse deserves a producer credit. He shows up, he's warm, he has one beautiful scene, he gives somebody a meaningful look, and then he's gone again, back on the road, off to the theater. He is home for roughly 1 scene per act, like a sitcom guest star who has a movie career and can only film on Thursdays. And tonight's very special episode features Will home for 11 minutes before returning to London, where the plot conveniently keeps him. Every time he reappears, you almost want to applaud like, look who decided to show up to his own family. And while we're here, let me say a word about the aesthetic, because by this point in the movie you have fully absorbed the house style. It is candles. It is fields. It is slow push-ins on faces that are about to feel a feeling. It is a flute. It is so much meaningful gazing out of windows that I'm convinced the windows in this house are the most acted against props in cinema history. Everyone in this film processes emotion by staring through glass at the weather. If you tried to play a drinking game where you took a sip every time a character gazed soulfully out of a window, you would not survive to see the plague arrive. You would be gone by the 2nd act. The window has more screen time than Susanna, and Susanna runs the entire household. But here's the thing, and I'll say it straight because the film is sneakily setting a trap. All of this, the swapping twins, the witches, the rosemary for remembering, the will you be brave, the dad who's never home, every cozy and slightly silly little beat in this whole stretch is the movie quietly loading the gun. Every sweet moment is a setup. The twins swapping clothes is funny now. It will not be funny later. Rosemary is for remembering, is heavy-handed now. It will wreck you later. I'll be brave is an awkward overpushed line now. Later it is the saddest thing in the film. Well, being absent is a running joke now. Soon it becomes the deepest wound in the whole story. The film is stacking dominoes in plain sight, calling it whimsy and waiting. So enjoy the cozy candlelit family hour while it lasts, because the movie is about to collect on every single thing it just planted, and it is going to collect all at once. So the dad rides off to London again, and the movie finally lets the air go quiet in a way that means something. Up to now, the silence has been a lifestyle choice. From here on, the silence has teeth. And it all starts with bees. I want to be honest with you. I did not have the bees no on my Hamnet bingo card, but here we are. Agnes is out by the hives, and the bees are restless, loud, wrong somehow, and she goes still, and you can feel the movie put on its serious face. Something is in the air, she says. And she's not being cute. She means it. The bees are upset, the light has gone strange, and she tells Joan to keep the children inside. Keep them in. Don't let them roam. Now I'm going to make exactly one joke about the bees, because they've earned it. These are the most dramatic insects ever committed to film. The bees are doing prestige acting. The bees are method. Somewhere a real beekeeper is watching this and going, that's not a plague omen, that's Tuesday. But the film treats them like an oracle, like they are whispering the future in little buzzy Latin, and you know what, I'll allow it, because what comes next is no joke at all. The film does this thing where it follows the sickness traveling. We leave the house and we drift along with the path of the infection, the long, quiet journey of how a plague actually moves across a country in the 1580s. It's beautifully shot. It's also, and I say this with love, the single most artsy way anyone has ever filmed a flea. Zhao really looked at the bubonic plague and thought, but make it lyrical. There's a whole montage, players and puppets and travelers on the road, the disease drifting from town to town like a sad little folk tale. It's giving folk horror art installation. It's giving museum exhibit you walk through in socks. And I'm not mocking the stakes are about to be everything. I'm just pointing out that most movies show you a rat and call it a day, and this one gives the plague a tour montage with a flute. Only Hamnet would make death this scenic. And then the scenic part ends hard. Hamnet comes home and the house is too quiet and he finds Judith collapsed. She's burning up, fever. He shakes her, he calls her name, and she barely answers, and this brave little kid does the only thing he can think to do. He runs. He runs for his mother, full speed, lungs going, that specific run a child does when the world has just cracked. And he finds Agnes and the dreaded word lands, the pestilence. The plague is in the house. What follows is the herbal war, and I have to walk a careful line here, so stay with me. Agnes and Mary, the grandmother, throw everything they have at this fever. Cinnamon, rhubarb, rosemary, salt, the hold stone Agnes wears, every cure in the kitchen, every chant, every remedy passed down through women who were called witches for knowing which plant did what. It's a frantic, full-tilt kitchen witch emergency room, and Buckley is incredible in it. Hands shaking, voice steady, doing everything a mother can do with the medicine of her time. Now, the gentle joke, and it's on the era, not on her, is that this is essentially WebMD, Tudor edition. It's every plant in England versus one virus, and the heartbreak baked into the scene is that we, watching from the future, know the plants are going to lose. That's the tragedy of folk medicine. All the love in the world in the wrong toolbox. The film knows it too. It lets her fight anyway, because what else does a mother do? And in the middle of it, that question. Why isn't he here? Where is he? And there it is. There's the gun the movie has been loading this whole time. Because every single time the husband said he had to go to London, every "I'll be back soon," every horse ride out of frame, the film was quietly stacking the deck for this exact moment. The moment his wife is fighting for a child's life alone, and the father is 100 miles away rehearsing a play. I have been roasting this man's commute for 2 sections. The horse should get a producer credit, I said. Sitcom guest star, I said. And the movie just looks at me and goes, yes, and now watch what that absence costs. The running gag stops being funny and becomes the whole point. That is genuinely sharp writing. Cruel but sharp. Every "he's in London" was the movie tightening a screw, and you didn't even feel it going in. Then comes the grandmother's speech, and this is where Hamnet plants its flag and just says the thing it's been circling for an hour. Mary, who has been the cold mother-in-law this entire film, the one who'd rather Will went to see, sits in the wreckage and tells Agnes the truth of her own life. She lost 3 daughters, 3. What is given, she says, may be taken away. Never let your guard down. And it lands like a stone in still water because this hard woman isn't being hard anymore. She's being a survivor, handing down the only wisdom grief ever teaches, which is that there is no guarding against it. The film has been whispering this thesis the whole time in the Orpheus story, in the Don't Look Back of it all, and here it finally says it out loud, plain in a kitchen by candlelight. I won't roast that. That one's earned. Mary gets her whole arc paid off in 3 sentences, and you suddenly understand why she was so afraid to love anyone, because loving people is how they break your heart. And then the boy. I'm going to tell you what Hamnet does, and I'm going to tell it straight, because this is the heart of the movie and it does not deserve a punchline. Hamnet, this sweet, brave kid who has spent the whole film swapping clothes and names with his twin sister to fool the grown-ups, takes that game, the silliest, most innocent game 2 children ever played, and turns it into the bravest thing in the film. He climbs into the bed beside Judith, the 2 of them tangled up the way twins are, and he starts to talk to Death. He says death can't tell them apart. He says it the way you'd say a magic trick, with total faith. It can't tell us apart, so take me instead. I give you my life, he says. You shall be well. He's trying to trade places. He's trying to swap one last time, the way they always have, except this time he's volunteering to be the one who doesn't come back. And under his breath you hear it. I'll be brave, father. The exact words the dad drilled into him in that goodbye scene that I called a hostage negotiation. He said yes 4 times, I joked. Well, he meant it. I need to stop and be completely real with you for a second, because I make my living poking holes in movies, and right here I have nothing to poke. The performances in this stretch are extraordinary. The swap idea, taking a child's playful trick and making it the mechanism of his sacrifice, is one of the most devastating ideas I've seen in a grief film, and it absolutely takes you apart. So let me be clear about what the roast is and what it never will be. The roast is the pacing. The roast is the 4-minute silences and the method B's and the man who films a plague like a perfume ad. The roast is the film's choices. It is never, not for 1 second, these 2 kids in that bed. There's a line and you don't cross it for a laugh, and Hamnet, of all movies, earns the respect. So that's where we are. The bees knew. The plague came. The wrong twin got sick, and then the right twin, the brave one, the one nobody worried about, decided he could fix it with the only magic he had, which was love and a costume swap. Agnes is fighting with rosemary and salt and centuries of inherited hope. The grandmother has said the unsayable thing. And the father, our reliable London commuter, is exactly where he always is, which is to say, not here. The trap, the movie set in slow motion, is about to spring. And it is going to hurt. And then it springs. Hamnet dies. The brave one, the one who volunteered, the one nobody was watching because everybody was watching his sister. He slips away in that bed and the house comes apart. Agnes's anguish is the kind of sound you feel in your back teeth. Susanna, the eldest, the responsible one who's been minding keys and chores this whole film, is suddenly just a girl pleading the truth nobody wants. It's too late for him. It's too late. And the movie does not flinch and does not cut away and does not give you anywhere to hide. If you are not crying here, I genuinely don't know what to tell you. Check your pulse. Check the bees. Something's wrong with you. Now here's the part where the movie's whole cruel architecture pays its final installment. The father is riding home. Of course he is. He's always riding home, a beat too late, a scene too short. And he gallops in and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Am I too late? Am I too late?" And for one terrible, hopeful second he sees Judith, the sickly twin, the one everybody always assumed would be the one they'd lose, and she is alive, she is upright, she is breathing, and you can see the relief try to start on his face. And then it curdles. Because if Judith is alive, then the small still shape in the other room is the child no one ever worried about. "It's my boy," he says. "It's my boy." The film makes him do the math out loud, and it's unbearable, and it's the single most savage thing the editing does all movie, dangling a half-second of the wrong relief before pulling the floor out. And I have to say it because the whole back half of the film is built on it, and the movie knows exactly what it's doing. The dad has been gone this entire picture. Gone for the courtship montages, gone for the writer's block, gone for half the childhoods, gone, 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 in London, in London, in London. And the one single time in 2 hours that being home would have meant anything, would have let him hold his son's hand, say a word, be a father in the room. He is everybody now in London. The movie turned its biggest running joke into its sharpest knife. I spent 2 sections calling this man a sitcom guest star. The film spent 2 sections agreeing with me and waiting. Then comes the ritual, and this is where Hamnet quietly tells you it understands grief better than almost any movie that's tried. Agnes prepares the body herself, the night washing. By candlelight, with cloth and water and her own 2 hands, she does the last mothering there is, and the film lets it be slow and tender and wordless. And for once I am grateful it's slow, because some things should take exactly this long. And into that hush comes Judith, carrying a secret that no 8-year-old should have to carry. "It's my fault," she says. "He changed places with me. He tricked death." She understood the whole time. She knew what her brother did, the swap, the trade, the last game, and she thinks she let him do it, thinks she's alive on his ticket. And Agnes, fierce and shattered, forbids it. "You will never say that again. Never. Because that is a weight that would crush a child flat, and a mother will take a lot of impossible things onto her own back to keep it off her daughters." It's one of the kindest, hardest moments in the film, and there's no joke in it. There just isn't. And then Judith looks at the body, and she says the thing children say that wrecks every adult in the room. "It doesn't look like him. It's not him." And she's right, in the way grief makes everyone right. The person is gone, and the shape is just a shape. The movie doesn't explain it or soften it. It just lets a little girl be honest and lets it land. Now, I promised you I'd roast the craft, and there is one thing I'm allowed to needle even here, gently, because it's about how the film operates and not about anybody's pain. This movie has 2 catchphrases, and they are both extremely sad. Count with me through the back half. "Look at me. Look at me. All will be well. All will be well. Look at me. All will be well. Look at me. All will be well." It's the emotional equivalent of a song with 2 chords, and somehow Zhao plays those 2 chords for 40 minutes and you still cry every time, which is either genius or a magic trick or both. The repetition is the point, sure, grief is repetitive, grief is a loop, I get it. But also, somebody in the edit could have let 1 or 2 of those breathe a little less. I'm just saying, 2 catchphrases, both devastating. Pick one occasionally. Then we get the grief fight, the rawest scene between Agnes and Will in the whole picture, and it's brutal because it's fair on both sides. "You weren't here," she tells him. "He died in agony and you weren't here." And he can't argue with the fact of it because the fact of it is the truth, so instead he insists on the other truth, that she did everything, that no one could have done more, that the plants and the chance and her whole fierce heart were not enough because nothing would have been enough. Both of them are right and both of them are bleeding, and the movie just lets them stand in it. No score swelling to bail them out. Just 2 people who loved a boy, failing to comfort each other over his body. That's the marriage at its breaking point, and the film has the nerve to hold the shot. And then, the movie does the thing that I cannot believe it has the audacity to play as poignant rather than as a crime. They bury their son. They put Hamnet in the ground. And barely, the dirt is settled and the husband announces that he has to leave, for London. Because, and I want you to brace yourself, the season is about to begin. The theater season. He buries his boy on what is functionally a Tuesday, and he is packing his bags for London by Wednesday because the playhouse is opening and he simply must go. Sir. I have been gentle for a whole section and a half, and I am going to spend exactly 1 sentence here because the man has earned it. You buried your son 4 days ago, and your priority is the autumn lineup. And the wild thing, the thing that makes this a great movie and not just a sad one, is that the film knows it's monstrous. It films his leaving like a wound, not like a hero's exit. Agnes attacks him, hits him, pours every ounce of a year's worth of rage into it, and then, spent, hollowed out, she does the most devastating thing a person can do to someone they love. She stops fighting. Go, she says, go, just go, not forgiveness, surrender. The sound of a marriage giving up. So the joke is squarely on the character and on the nerve of a film that dares to play a man abandoning his grieving wife days after a funeral as a quiet, mournful, beautifully scored departure. Zhao looks at the saddest scene a human being could possibly sit through and asks herself one question, the same question she always asks, which is, what if this were 4 minutes longer and a little bit quieter? And the answer, infuriatingly every time, is that it works. It guts you. The pacing that I have mocked for 5 sections is the exact reason this lands, because the film made you wait so long and so patiently that when the blow comes you have nowhere to brace. So where does that leave us? Hamnet is gone. The father has ridden off to London one final, unforgivable time, leaving a wife who can't even hate him properly anymore, just wave him out the door. A little girl is carrying a secret about a swapped place and a tricked death that her mother has forbidden her to speak. And the marriage, the one that started with a hawk and a kiss and you'll tell me your name when we kiss, is in pieces on the floor of a house where a child used to be. The movie has spent every slow minute earning this devastation, and now it sits in the rubble. And somewhere down in London, a grieving man is about to pick up a pen, and he is about to do something with all of this that will either be the most beautiful act of love you've ever seen, or the most selfish, and the film is going to make you decide which. But that is the next chapter. So the boy is gone, the dad has fled back to London for theater season, and you'd think the movie would maybe pick up the pace now. Reader, it does not. We open the back half of this thing with a year of grief, and the very first thing the movie does is sit us down to listen to a man read a sonnet out loud. Susanna, the eldest daughter, the responsible one who keeps the keys and minds the house, opens a page and reads Sonnet 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time. And it's lovely, it's genuinely lovely, but I have to point out that we are over an hour into a movie about a dead child, and the film has fully stopped pretending it is anything other than a Shakespeare commercial. It just gave up. It looked at us and went, you know what, we're doing the poetry now. No more sneaking it in under the mashed potatoes. We're plating the vegetables and calling them the entree. And Agnes is destroyed. This is the heart of the whole section, and it is real, so let me say it plainly. She is haunted. She keeps saying she's constantly wondering where he is. He can't have just vanished. A whole person was here and now there's a gap shaped exactly like him, and she can't stop reaching into it. That's not a joke. Jessie Buckley plays a woman who has misplaced her own child in the universe and refuses to accept that the universe doesn't return things. The movie lets her grief just sit there and breathe, which fair, that's the right call. But it also means we are now watching grief at the speed of a glacier with the brakes on. Time in this film does not pass, it accumulates like dust. Like the dust on the furniture this family no longer has, which, foreshadowing, we'll get to. Then Will comes home. Of course he does. He always comes home for exactly one scene, drops off some feelings, and leaves like the world's saddest delivery driver. And this time he brings gifts. He brings Agnes a ruby, sir. You missed the funeral, you were in London while your son was dying, but you remembered the jewelry. That is Priorities by William. That is a man who cannot be in the room when it matters, but can absolutely find a gem merchant. He brings Judith a comb. He brings news that he's bought the biggest house in all of Stratford, the grandest house in town, a real estate flex of historic proportions. And here's the detail that tells you everything. He won't even walk Agnes through the new house himself. He can't. He's avoiding it. Not the house, the room. The room where Hamnet died is somewhere in this man's memory, and he has built a literal mansion just to have more rooms to not go into. He bought a giant house specifically so he'd never have to stand in the small one. That's so sad it loops back around to being a power move, and then loops again into being just sad. Which brings us to the coldest scene in the movie, and the movie has been competing in the cold scene Olympics this whole time, so that's saying something. Agnes, who has spent the entire film reading people, reading the little muscle between the thumb and finger, seeing landscapes and oceans and undiscovered countries inside strangers, takes a hand. His the moment. What do you see? She's asked. And she says nothing. Nothing at all. The magic is gone. The gift that defined her from the first 3 minutes of this movie, the whole witch of the forest thing, has switched off because grief took it. And then she tells him, you should go back to London. The marriage is at its absolute lowest point. And here's what's infuriating. Those 2 words, nothing. Nothing at all. They are delivered with all the energy of a phone at 1%, a completely flat, hollowed-out little nothing, and it absolutely destroys you. It works. It's annoying how well it works. I came here to roast a slow movie, and instead I'm doing the thing where you stare at the wall for a second. The film keeps doing this. It earns these moments with such patience that you can't even be mad. You can be a little mad. I'm choosing to be a little mad. Okay, pace check, because the movie won't give us one. Where are we? We're in the rehearsal montage, which is the closest this film comes to having a montage, by which I mean 3 shots and a meaningful pause. We finally cut to London and see Will at work, and he's drilling actors through a play. And the lines start landing. Get thee to a nunnery. To be or not to be. The play is forming right in front of us. And the movie, bless it, still acts like we don't know what we're looking at. It's serving us the most famous lines in the English language, one ladle at a time, like a tasting menu, like, oh, can you guess the secret ingredient? And the secret ingredient is the most produced play in human history. We know. We've known since the title card. We've known since before we bought the ticket. But the film holds its cards to its chest with the confidence of a man who genuinely believes you cannot see the giant H on the marquee behind him. And I do want to flag, because the rule of this channel is to be honest about the planting, that everything is paying off here. Remember way back in the courtship when this guy told Agnes the Orpheus story? The man who loses his wife, goes to the underworld to get her, is told do not look back, looks back, loses her forever. Remember the rest is silence. Remember undiscovered country, the line she said when she read his hand. The movie planted all of that like a gardener who labels every seed, and now the green shoots are coming up, and the play taking shape in this rehearsal room is built out of all of it. We're watching a man turn his own dead son into the most famous ghost story ever written, and he doesn't even seem to know he's doing it yet. That's actually a stunning idea. The film just makes you wait for it the way you wait for a kettle in a house with bad plumbing. Then comes the bomb, and it's dropped by, of all people, Joan, the stepmother. Agnes's old nemesis, the one who called her wild, the not my mother lady from the early going. Joan visits and casually mentions that Will's new play is the talk of the town. And here's the twist that lands on Agnes like a roof tile. It's not a comedy. Will writes comedies. Will is the funny play guy, the crowd pleaser. This one's a tragedy. Everyone in Stratford is whispering about it. And Susanna turns to her mother and asks the question that powers the entire rest of the movie. Do you not wonder what is in it, the play? What did he do? What did he do with our grief, with our loss, with the thing this family is not allowed to even say out loud? He took it somewhere. He made something out of the worst day of all their lives, and they don't know what shape it took, and now they need to know. It's a genuinely great hook. The film spent 90 minutes earning the right to ask one question, and the question is good. So Agnes decides to go to London. She and Susanna pack up and travel to the city, the same city that has been eating her husband alive for the entire film, the city she refused to bring sickly Judith to, the city that took Will away over and over while she raised the children in the mud and the candlelight. She finally goes, and when they get there they discover something that is, I'm sorry, just very funny in a deeply melancholy way. The man who owns the biggest, grandest, most expensive house in Stratford, the historic real estate flex, is in London living in a bare attic. An attic. A cupboard with a window. The richest man in his hometown is sleeping in a room that has, generously, 1 chair. Even his grief is too artsy for furniture. He has a mansion he can't enter and an attic he can barely fit in, and somehow that contradiction is the most honest thing the movies told us about him. And look, I have to say it because we've now sat through nearly 2 full hours of this film and not one single human being has said the word Shakespeare. Not once. They've said the tutor, the husband, Will, the Glover's son. They've quoted Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, the sonnets, and now they are literally rehearsing the most famous play ever written, and the movie still will not say the name. The restraint is honestly, genuinely impressive. It is also completely insane. It's like making a movie about the moon landing and never saying the word moon. We're standing in the attic, the mystery is wound up tight, the play has a name nobody's said yet, and the whole thing is about to come down on us in one room full of strangers. So hold that thought, because next we walk into the playhouse and the film finally pays off the bait it's been dangling since a hawk and some wind. So Agnes walks into the playhouse. The Globe-style theater, the round wooden O, packed shoulder to shoulder with groundlings who paid a penny to stand in the mud and yell at actors, which honestly is the same as the comment section, just with more plague. The play begins, and the first thing we get is guards on a cold night, somebody calling out, "Who's there?" and then a ghost. A literal ghost walking the battlements. And Agnes, standing in this crowd of strangers, has no idea what she's looking at. What has any of this to do with my son, she's thinking. She came all this way to find out what her husband made of their grief, and the curtain goes up on what, a spooky castle. She's lost. We are not because we have eyes and a poster, but she's lost. And then the reveal starts coming in waves, and the movie, give it credit, plays this beautifully. Wave 1, the ghost. The actor under the ghost costume, the dead figure walking the stage, is Will. He cast himself as the ghost. Of course he did. This man processed the death of his son by getting a SAG card and playing a dead dad on stage every single night for money. That is either the most beautiful act of grief in the history of art or the single most theater kid thing anyone has ever done, and the film's whole genius is that it's completely both. Wave 2, the name. On stage, an actor says it, "Our valiant Hamlet," and Agnes hears it. She hears her dead son's name, Hamlet, the same name, said out loud in public to a paying crowd, coming out of the mouth of a stranger in a costume. And she breaks. "Don't you dare pronounce my son's name." She tries to flee the theater. She's furious. He took the boy, the actual boy, and put him in a play and is charging admission, and she will not stand here and watch it. And then, slowly in the dark, the thing the whole movie has been building toward finally clicks into place. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is where I stopped being a smug little roast host and just sort of sat there. Because the ghost, played by Will, is speaking to the young Prince Hamlet on stage. But that's not really who he's speaking to. A grieving father dressed as a ghost is standing on a stage talking to a boy named Hamlet, and what he's actually doing is talking to his dead son. He has swapped places with him. Remember the twins, the whole movie, Hamnet and Judith swapping clothes, swapping names, I'm Hamnet, no, I'm Judith. The game that turned into the boy trying to trade places with death to save his sister. Now the father has done the swap himself. He's put on the costume of the dead and stepped into it so that his living son can be the one who walks and speaks and is remembered forever. He brought Hamnet back. He found a way to put the boy on a stage and have him live every night in front of hundreds of people, for as long as the play is performed, which, spoiler, turns out to be the rest of human history. And every single seed the film planted comes up at once. The Orpheus story, the man who goes to the underworld to bring back the one he lost, who's told do not look back. Undiscovered country, the line Agnes saw in his hand at the very beginning, now a line in the play about death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. The rest is silence. It all lands in one room in the dark, and it lands on Agnes, who finally understands what her husband did. He didn't use their grief. He didn't exploit the boy. He built him a place to live forever because he couldn't stand to let him just vanish. The exact thing Agnes said back in the year of grief, he can't have just vanished. Turns out he didn't. The dad made sure of it. The ghost says, "Remember me." The ghost says adieu, and Will on stage in the costume weeps. He's not acting at this point, or he's acting and meaning it, which is the whole impossible thing actors do. And across the crowd, across all these strangers and the mud and the noise, Agnes and Will finally see each other. Really see each other for the first time since everything broke. The reconciliation doesn't happen in words. It happens in a look across a theater, which is the most Hamnet thing this movie could possibly do, because this entire film has communicated in meaningful glances and soft little ahs, and so naturally the marriage gets saved by eye contact during a play. And you know what? After 2 hours, I'll allow it. To be or not to be, the duel. Hamlet dies on stage in his friend's arms. The rest is silence, the callback to the Orpheus story from the courtship, landing like the last domino in a line that's 2 hours long. The crowd is silent. Agnes is at peace. Her boy is on the stage and her boy is gone, and somehow, for the length of a play, those two things sit side by side and don't tear each other apart. And then the coda. We go back outside, back to the fields, back to where this whole thing started with a hawk and some wind. Agnes the hawk, the open sky. And there's a song. My robin to the greenwood gone. I pray that those trees will return my boy. And the credits roll. And the hawk, our beautiful, patient, completely iconic hawk who has frankly outacted half the cast and asked for nothing, gets one last moment in the air. Okay. Let's do the bow. Because the film, infuriating as it is, deserves an honest accounting. After 2 full hours, the movie pulls off the big twist, which is that the play is called Hamlet, buddy. It's been on the poster. It is the second most famous word in the English language. You named a child Hamnet in scene 1 and dared us to be surprised when Dad wrote Hamlet, and then you played it like a shocking reveal, and somehow, you got away with it. The hawk still here, still magnificent. Rosemary, that's for remembering, paid off. The river paid off in dread, even if nobody drowned. Be Brave paid off at the worst possible moment. Undiscovered Country paid off on stage. The Rest is Silence paid off. And the name nobody would say, the word Shakespeare, this film made it almost the whole way through and only lets it land at the very end, the boldest We Will Not Say Shakespeare marketing campaign in cinema history. Insane choice. Worked anyway. So here's the verdict. Hamnet is the slowest, most beautiful, most frustrating cry you'll have all year. It is prestige bait, full prestige bait, gray light and mud and brooding stares out of windows and a flute that will not quit. And the maddening thing is that it actually pays off the bait. Every glacial pause, every one scene per act London goodbye, every whispered look at me and all will be well, every minute I spent yelling at this man to come home, all of it was the movie quietly loading one punch, and at the end it throws that punch and connects. 2 performances for the absolute ages. Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal are doing something close to witchcraft, which, given the plot, feels right. A hawk that genuinely deserves its own spin-off series. And a film that takes the saddest possible idea and turns it into something that, against all my better judgment, made me feel okay about it by the end. Do I recommend it? Yes, I do. Just bring tissues, bring snacks, and bring patience. Like a lot of patience. Pack a lunch. Pack 2 lunches. This movie does not respect your schedule and it does not care about your bladder. That's Hamnet. If this roast made you laugh, made you cry, or made you finally understand why your friend wouldn't stop talking about the bird, do the thing. Hit that like button, subscribe so the algorithm returns my videos the way Agnes wants those trees to return her boy, and tell me in the comments which famous play you'd refuse to name for 2 hours. And if you made it all the way to the end of this recap without taking a single meaningful pause to stare wistfully out a window, congratulations, you have more focus than this entire film. I'll see you in the next one. And somewhere the hawk is still whistling.